How do you make the most overkill video of Arthas Menethil and his background story? I think I have a plan. Welcome, traveler, and today is a very special episode because there has been a lot of research and work put into this, and I'm really hoping the video today is going to be amazing. You're going to be the witness of that or the judge of that at the end of this video. Could be a bit of a long video, but today with me I have Arthas Menethil, and I've been working to put together his story in 60 pages of lore, more or less, describing all of the major events that take place in his life, describing his motivation, describing where he ends up and how everything happened. This is updated with the newest lore too, and with the War Within. Alongside Illidan, I have brought here on the operating table everyone who is someone. So I will bring in, as we go, all of the different characters that have an influence on his life, the ones that I do have as 3D figures. So right here you are seeing Sylvanas Windrunner, you are seeing Illidan Stormrage, you are seeing Tichondrius, and a random Scourge member, a mindless ghoul over here. There's also the Frostmourne over there, and then I do have the Frostmourne in the back. Maybe we'll also bring the Shadowmourne in the back. There is the Helm of Domination. I do have Ganis as well, Sindragosa, a 3D printed dragon, and I think that would be it for collectibles that I have ready for you today. So if you are ready, go grab some good tasty snacks, preferably on the healthier side, and strap yourself in because we have a long journey ahead of us. Let's go. Open my tome of lore over here, being careful not to piss Arthas off, because Arthas Menethil is at page 57. Arthas Menethil, the Lich King. Arthas Menethil was the son of Theranos Menethil II and the son of Lian Menethil as well, and he was born 4 years before the start of the First War. The First War, when the Orcs first invaded Azeroth. He was a baby, just a small baby, when Medivh was under the influence of Gul'dan and the Fel, and Medivh, he betrayed the Alliance and opened the Dark Portal at the Black Morass and invited the First Horde to join in and come to Azeroth. In the Warcraft timeline, the start of the First War is noted as Year Zero, just so you know. Just like, for example, when the Dark Trolls started evolving into Night Elves back 15,000 before the Dark Portal. So that's how we refer to things. Year Zero is when the Dark Portal was opened. Arthas, he spent his childhood primarily in Lordaeron. He was raised at the royal court under the guidance of his father, the king, and his tutors. Theranos, his father, he hoped that Arthas would one day rule with the same measured temperament that Arthas was actually struggling with. So from a young age already, he had some issues with his temperament. There's the next chapter I called here a big personality, someone who you might have heard before. They make their appearance. During the First War, there at Year Zero, King Wrynn is assassinated by Garona Half-Orcan. She was also under the command of Gul'dan. Theranos, the father of Arthas, he took in the son of Wrynn, who was murdered there. He took him in as a ward and treated him like a second son. The name of the son was the famous Varian Wrynn. Give me a second and I'll show you who that is. This is Varian Wrynn. This is the father of Anduin Wrynn, an extremely respected hero of the Alliance, who also has a great story, a fantastic story. He is split into two persons, and he has to fight his way back into becoming one again. And he also, of course, as you can see in the 3D print here in front of me, he is the wielder of the Charlemagne. When Varian Wrynn dies, the blade is inherited by his son, Anduin Wrynn, and I also have a review of the weapon somewhere on the YouTube channel if you really want to see this one. It's an amazing weapon. Go check it out. This is Varian Wrynn, and Varian Wrynn, together with Arthas, they actually grew up together for quite a long time. But let's get back to the story with some more details there. So as I just mentioned, for a while, Arthas and Varian Wrynn lived together and grew up as foster brothers. In year 0, Arthas was 4 years old and Varian was 10 years old. So Varian Wrynn was 6 years older than Arthas. They lived together for roughly 4 years. Although they grew up together, the two boys were very different. You see, Arthas, he was the heir to the throne of Lordaeron. He was always surrounded by nobles. He was surrounded by tutors, clerics of Lordaeron. Arthas was early exposed to politics. He was exposed to duty and expectations that shaped his personality. He was often impulsive, reckless, imprudent, impetuous. This exposure to the high life, to the noble life, kind of shaped his personality there. King Terenas protected Arthas from sword and shield until he met Varian Wrynn. The father considered that diplomacy was the more important competence to have from an early age. Varian, on the other side, he was very familiar with the art of combat. He was clearly superior in the mindset of the warrior. Varian had lost his father to the orcs when he was 10, right there, and had to be relocated at such a young age. He represents resilience through loss. Because of this, Arthas, he looked up to Varian. That's why he also was inspired to learn the art of combat from Varian. And he was also lucky enough, Arthas, to be mentored by one of the mightiest, very condensed warriors you could find on the continent. The seasoned explorer, dwarf of Ironforge called Muradin Bronzebeard. I hope you heard of that name. If you have not heard that name before, he was very well known in the Warcraft campaign. A very nice hero. OP, one could say. Muradin, he was invited by King Terenas to stay at the court and train Arthas. Muradin taught Arthas the fundamentals of combat, discipline, and battlefield awareness. Although not the most disciplined or patient student, Arthas, he was fiercely determined. He really wanted this. Throughout the years, the two of them developed a very strong bond that blended this mentor-to-student relationship with something that was more close to brotherhood. They became really close friends, Arthas and Muradin, his mentor. It was a pity that, and this is where their friendship comes full circle, this journey ends in betrayal and tragedy when Arthas later claims the cursed blade Frostmourne. Chapter 2.1 Uther the Lightbringer. At the age of 16, Arthas meets Uther the Lightbringer when he begins his training to become a paladin of the Silver Hand. Uther was not only Arthas' mentor, but he was also a trusted friend of his father, King Sylvanas Menethil II. The relationship between Arthas and Uther was one built on loyalty, discipline, and a deep mutual respect. However, this would also become tragic. In fact, one of the most tragic fractures in the World of Warcraft lore, or in the Warcraft lore. Let's start this story and finish this story in one go. So the Mentor and the Prince, I call this chapter 2.2. Year 12 in the Warcraft timeline, Arthas was now 16, the apprenticeship begins. Uther teaches Arthas the values of the light, compassion, justice, and restraint. Uther was a stern but caring figure, almost like a second father to Arthas. Uther, he held Arthas to a high standard, perhaps maybe too high at times. Arthas, on his part, he admired Uther, but he also chafed under his very strict command. He was annoyed, he was impatient. The entire process was hard and inconvenient for Arthas. Arthas wanted to prove himself as a capable protector of Lordaeron, independent of both Uther's and his father's legacy. We're gonna get back to this protector role of Arthas towards the end of the story because there's a lot there. Very important and interesting. We get to a part which I call the breaking point, at Stratholme. Year 20 in the Warcraft timeline, and we are now during the Third War. Arthas was now at the proud age of 24. Capable, young, potent. The Third War was a massive conflict between the mortal races of Azeroth and the demons of the Burning Legion. They were invading the Eastern Kingdoms, Kalimdor, and Northrend. During the Third War, as whispers of a mysterious plague spreading throughout northern Lordaeron reached the capital city, Arthas took up the mantle to investigate this, alongside Uther and Jaina Proudmoore. He went to what now is the Western Plaguelands and discovered that the plague was not merely a disease, but it was actually a sinister force, turning the citizens into the undead. Tough. So, you see, that part of Lordaeron at the Western Plaguelands, before all of this Scourge invasion, it was the main supplier of grain for the entire kingdom. So if something were to happen with the crops, the entire kingdom would crumble. And this is exactly what happened. There was another character that we introduce here. He is called Kel'Thuzad. Kel'Thuzad was a Kirin Tor former mage of Dalaran, who sacrificed himself at the Frozen Throne to Ner'zhul, the original Lich King. The Lich King was in turn under the control of Kil'jaeden and the Burning Legion. The purpose of the Lich King was to control the mindless undead, the Scourge. So if you want some sort of hierarchy, we have Sargeras, we have Kil'jaeden, we have Ner'zhul, the Lich King, then Kel'Thuzad, and under that we have the grain of Lordaeron. So Kel'Thuzad was the one who was controlling this spreading of the plague in the grain, which was then rationed to the entirety of the peoples of Lordaeron, infecting the entire kingdom. The grain was infected or infused with the plague, which would turn the citizens, as I said, into the Scourge under the control of the Lich King. The more undead, the larger the army, and ultimately under the control of the corrupted titan Sargeras, who wanted to weaken the armies of Azeroth and obliterate or destroy the dormant world soul within the planet Azeroth. If you have not seen my video about the Burning Legion, this explains it in detail. But the point is, Sargeras, he was corrupted and wants to exterminate every single soul, planet soul on the universe to prevent a greater evil happening. But he is mad. Arthas, he realized that the plague was turning humans when he met the necromancer Kel'Thuzad in the Western Plaguelands. He pursued Kel'Thuzad. He was determined to protect his people, eliminated him, but he couldn't do anything to stop the spreading of the plague. The grains were already in the people's houses and they had already eaten it. The culling of Stratholme. Because of this plague, the city of Stratholme stood at the brink of infection. Believing that decisive action was necessary, Arthas ordered the purging of the city to prevent its citizens from turning into the undead. This brutal decision caused a rift between him and his mentors. Uther, he refused to participate, and Jaina chose to walk away. In front of Stratholme, the interaction unfolded as follows.
Glad you could make it, Uther. What's your tone with me, boy? You may be the prince, but I'm still your superior as a paladin. As if I could forget. Listen, Uther, there's something about the plague you should know. Oh no, it's too late. The people have all been infected. They may look fine now, but it's only a matter of time before they turn into the undead. What? This entire city must be purged. How can you even consider that? There's got to be some other way. Damn it, Uther! As your future king, I order you to purge this city. You are not my king yet, boy, nor would I obey that command if you were. Then I must consider this an act of treason. Treason? Have you lost your mind, Arthas? Have I? Lord Uther, by my right of succession and sovereignty of my crown, I hereby relieve you from your command and suspend your paladins from service.
Arthas, you can't just...
It's done. Those of you who have the will to save this land, follow me. The rest of you, get out of my sight. You've just crossed a terrible threshold, Arthas.
Arthas, looking at Jaina.
Jaina?
I'm sorry, Arthas. I can't watch you do this.
Arthas then proceeds with the culling of Stratholme, making a pivotal step in his descent into madness. As he enters Stratholme, he is met by the Dreadlord Ganis. And Ganis is joining us in a second here. No, there's no more room. Okay, I created room for Ganis. Arthas, Ganis, a Dreadlord. If you don't know the story of the Dreadlords, then I think you should see one of my videos where I tell the story of the Dreadlords in the video that I made about Tichondrius over there. So Ganis shows up.
I've been waiting for you, young prince. I am Ganis. As you can see, your people are now mine. I will now turn the city household by household until the flame of life has been snuffed out forever.
Arthas.
I won't allow it, Ganis. Better that these people die by my hand than serve you as your slaves in death.
Then Ganis vanishes. You know, that's what Dreadlords do. They don't sit and fight so often, they disappear. He does exactly the same. Arthas, he fights through the entire Stratholme, and at the end, he encounters Ganis again, and he bests him in combat. He defeats him at the end of the culling of Stratholme. But we know that demons cannot be killed. They cannot die on Azeroth. They can only die in the Twisting Nether. So they have to die twice to really die. Arthas, we're going to finish this right now, Ganis. Just you and me.
Brave words. Unfortunately for you, it won't end here. Your journey has just begun, young prince. Gather your forces and meet me in the Arctic lands of Northrend. It is there that we shall settle the score between us. It is there that your true destiny will unfold.
Disappears again. Arthas.
I will hunt you to the ends of the earth if I have to. Do you hear me? To the ends of the earth!
Cutscene stops. The next chapter is called Frostmourne and the Loss of Humanity. After this episode, Prince Arthas, he took his men, he loaded the ships, and he sailed to Northrend to hunt this guy. Chasing the Dreadlord Mal'Ganis there, he sought a means to end the Scourge threat. He was still Arthas, holy. In Northrend, Arthas, he encounters his old mentor, Muradin Bronzebeard, who was in Northrend in search of the powerful runeblade Frostmourne. Muradin had heard rumors about the power of this blade. He tells Arthas about it, and Arthas vows to help Muradin find the blade in his quest to defeat Mal'Ganis. The Lich King, Ner'zhul, had placed Frostmourne in Northrend, hoping that Arthas would find it and fall under his control. As a player, we can find the Frostmourne cave in the Northrend part of Dragonblight. There, Arthas and Muradin met the guardian of the Frostmourne cavern and killed it. It was an elemental. There was a catch with the blade. I just brought a prop. It's over here. They enter the cave, and there's a dialogue between Arthas and Muradin. Arthas starts.
Behold, Muradin, our salvation, Frostmourne.
Hold, lad. There's an inscription on the dais. It's a warning. It says, "Whomever takes this blade shall wield power eternal. Just as blade rends flesh, so must power scar the spirit." Oh, I should have known. The blade is cursed. Let's get the hell out of here.
I would gladly bear any curse to save my homeland.
Leave it be, Arthas. Forget this business and lead your men home.
Damn the men! Nothing shall prevent me from having my revenge, old friend. Not even you. Now, I call out to the spirits of this place. I will give anything or pay any price, if only you will help me save my people.
A shard of ice falls down, hits and kills Muradin. Arthas, he walks out of the cave with the blade. Frostmourne. Not that noble, one would say, of Arthas. He sacrificed his friend and mentor, Muradin Bronzebeard, to get the blade. You can feel that he's going down mentally. It's not going too well for him. Later, Arthas finally finds Mal'Ganis stationed at a Scourge base and kills him, or semi-kills him. He sends him to the Twisting Nether. Again. The next chapter is called The Maddening Wander Across the Frozen Wastes. This is a chapter that is not known by many, and I think it's important to discuss this. After killing Mal'Ganis, Arthas had a long period of time when he wandered the wastes of Northrend alone, driven by the voice of Frostmourne. He was heavily influenced and warped in that time. He had plans of returning and becoming the king of Lordaeron, instead of merging with the Lich King. So initially he wanted to go back home. This is depicted in the cinematic from Blizzard Entertainment where he murders his father. So the initial plan was to go home and rule the kingdom with his new blade, but some higher entities had some other plans for him. Arthas could not control the power of the blade, and he bent to the will of Ner'zhul. Arthas then becomes the first of the Death Knights. There are many speculations, and some of them say that it was in this long period that Arthas changed, that he did not willingly surrender his soul, and that's why his skin and hair become white. Also, During this time, he used Frostmourne to slay humans and trap their souls, which you later find in, for example, the Halls of Reflection, when you do the dungeon in the expansion Wrath of the Lich King. By the way, it was also later added by Blizzard that Muradin, he did not in fact die, but he was knocked out and had severe amnesia. He forgot everything for many years. Later on, he reunites with his brother, Magni and Bran Bronzebeard, and fully recovers his memories. That's really nice. The next chapter, Arthas and Jaina Proudmoore. So let's have a love story in the middle of all this tragedy and dark power. The first real connection between the two was in Dalaran, where Jaina came to study magic under Archmage Antonidas. Arthas was often traveling between Dalaran and Lordaeron, encountered her in one of his visits, and the two quite quickly grew close. Their bond grew over shared ideals, useful optimism, and a genuine affection for one another. Arthas was training to become a paladin, Jaina was studying magic, and so they found comfort in each other amid the growing political tensions of the time. Growing up together, Jaina and Arthas developed a very deep bond of friendship, which evolved into a love story after she turned 18 and they met in Dalaran and they reconnected there. She would sneak out of her studies to meet and have snowball fights with Arthas. They knew each other like nobody else did. They were doing private getaways where Arthas, for example, took her in a secret trip to escape their responsibilities, where he would surprise her with a single red rose. That story, for example, with the rose, it stayed with Jaina forever. So that was quite nice. However, this was not meant to last. As tensions escalated with the rise of the Plague of Undead, Arthas began to pull away from Jaina, fearing that emotional attachment would cloud his judgment. There was a strong internal conflict in Arthas there with this topic. It was not easy for him. He was in love with Jaina. Eventually, he chose to end the relationship, believing that his future as a king and a paladin required sacrifice. Jaina, she was heartbroken but understanding. She respected his decision. The love story, the fall and the rift. When Arthas descended into darkness, with the culling of Stratholme, claiming Frostmourne, becoming the Lich King, Jaina, she stood on the other side, devastated. She never stopped loving Arthas. She never stopped loving the man he was, but ultimately she stood against him, against the monster that he became. In Wrath of the Lich King, during a pivotal moment at the Frozen Halls, Jaina is confronted with the ghost of what Arthas used to be. You can experience this in-game in the dungeon. Jaina, she once hoped she would marry Arthas. Instead, she ended up helping lead the war to destroy him. Their story, to this day, remains one of the most tragic romances in the Warcraft history. Jaina Proudmoore and Arthas Menethil. Unfortunately. The next one is a subchapter, and it's the story of Invincible, Arthas's horse. There is a lot of detail that is important in this story, and this is why I chose to bring it in, because it tells a lot about the motivations and about the personality that was hiding deep inside of Arthas. So I chose to bring this in. Let's see what happened with his horse. I called the subtitle of this chapter A Friend in Life and in Undead. Part 1. The name. When Arthas was 9 years old, he witnessed the birth of a white foal, a baby horse. The foal was fragile, little and could barely bear its own weight. These were not values that Arthas was, yearning for, but he fell in love with the baby horse nonetheless. He had to find a name for the horse, and he initially thought of Snowfall, since it was during a snowstorm that the horse was born. He also thought of the name Starlight. However, the tradition of the Knights of Lordaeron was that they would name their horses or steeds after a trait or a quality. He chose to call the foal Invincible. As Christie Golden writes in the book Rise of the Lich King, he named the horse Invincible not for what it was, but for what it would become. You see, even as a young prince, Arthas, he was driven by a powerful desire to protect, to lead, and to never be helpless. The name Invincible was a promise, a vision, a hopeful aspiration. Arthas, he was projecting his idealized future onto the foal, much like he later projected unrealistic ideas onto himself, his followers at Stratholme, his kingdom, and his role as a protector. He wanted his steed to be unstoppable. He wanted his steed to be perfect. He wanted his steed to be immortal. Because he wanted those things too, for himself. Part 2 of the Invincible story, the tragedy. Throughout 10 years, Arthas and Invincible formed a bond that became legendary, more legendary than Thunder Fury Blessed Blade of the Windseeker, one might argue. The steed bore Arthas into battles, tournaments, long rides away from royal duties, dates with Jaina Proudmoore, and much more. Invincible, he was a symbol of hope, freedom, and all that was noble in young Arthas. Arthas, at this point, he is 19 years old. He went for a reckless 9-time ride through a snowstorm, otherwise a place where he had been before. They were at the Balnir farmstead, which on the map now, it lies a bit northeast from the Undercity. Arthas, he wanted to show off and jump over a frozen ravine, and as Invincible is running, the horse slips on the ice and fails to jump high enough. They fall a great height, and Invincible's legs are shattered beyond healing when they land. This is a pivotal moment. Arthas was devastated. This was a defining moment for him, a failure he never forgave himself for. It showed his arrogance, his impulsiveness, and his deep fear of loss. It was the first death that truly broke Arthas. He couldn't save Invincible. The pain after the fall was insufferable. Arthas, he drove his sword through the steed's heart to end the pain. Naturally, he was overwhelmed by sadness and guilt. It was a completely uncalled for jump. It was unnecessary. He did not tell anyone that the death of Invincible was on his hands, and he had the horse buried at the Balnir farmstead. The reason I am saying that this was a pivotal moment is that after the death of Invincible, Arthas, he swore an oath to himself. He would always protect others, no matter the cost, no matter the sacrifice. Might even repeat this because this is important. He would always protect others, no matter the cost, no matter the sacrifice. Part 3, the resurrection. Many years later, after Arthas took up Frostmourne and lost his soul, he returned to the Balnir farmstead. In a dark ritual at the ruined stables, Arthas, now the Lich King, he used necromantic energy and magic to raise Invincible from the grave. Invincible returned as a terrifying undead steed, skeletal, armored, winged. his eyes glowing with a light blue color. And also an incredibly low drop chance from the Lich King in Icecrown Citadel. But hey, even in Undeath, Invincible, he remained loyal. He bore Arthas across the frozen wastes of Northrend and into the final battles as the Lich King's mount. This transformation from noble steed to undead warhorse mirrored Arthas's own journey from prince to monster. And this was the story of Invincible. Chapter 4. The Fall of the Lich King. There are many atrocious deeds that the Lich King Arthas he commits during his reign. His reign was 11 years. It started in year 22 when he became the Lich King, and it ended in year 33 when he was defeated at the Icecrown Citadel in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. I put together a list of these atrocious deeds and I wrote 10 of them. Here's a list. Number 1, and it's also where he begins. Where it begins, it's the culling of Stratholme. It's clear. The point of no return, he does mass execution, he descends into fanaticism and moral decay. Number 2, slaying his own father, King Sylvanas Menethil II. After this maddening wandering in Northrend that I mentioned, Arthas returns to Lordaeron to kill his own father with the Frostmourne. By the way, if you go into Lordaeron right now in the Undercity, and you wait in the throne room where you see the throne, you will be able to hear very faint, very low in the background this story unfold with "succeeding you, father." Try it next time you're at Lordaeron. But number 3, murdering his mentor, Uther the Lightbringer. In order to raise Kel'Thuzad as a lich, Arthas needed an urn. So there's this guy, Kel'Thuzad. He was a mage of the Kirin Tor that went to the frozen throne, sacrificed himself to Ner'zhul, who was the original Lich King, and then he was raised as a necromancer who was undead. Then he went to the Western Plaguelands, Kel'Thuzad, and he was slain by Arthas the paladin because he was turning this grain. And then after Arthas becomes a Death Knight, he then goes and picks the reins of Kel'Thuzad and resurrects him again as a lich. You know, one of those creatures with a lot of bones. They are highly magically potent. He had to go to the Sunwell to resurrect the lich Kel'Thuzad, but the remains of the necromancer Kel'Thuzad, they were too fragile and they could not survive the journey. So he needed an urn to preserve his remains, to transport them to the Sunwell to resurrect Kel'Thuzad as a lich. So he does that. But they didn't have an urn, so what to do? He heard word that Uther the Lightbringer held such an urn, not knowing that the urn actually contained the ashes of his father. So he went and he met Uther the Lightbringer in the Western Plaguelands at Andor Hall, and he got the urn from him there. But Arthas scarred the soul of Uther when murdering him, preventing Uther from ascending in the Shadowlands in Bastion. He took the urn and then he raised Kel'Thuzad as a lich. Number 4 on this list, raising the dead into his army. Countless innocents were raised into the undead to serve using necromancy. Mothers, fathers, children, they were raised into weapons against their own kind. Atrocity number 5, the fall of Quel'Thalas. There she is. And by the way, I will soon bring in with the story of Illidan. I made the entire lore or story of how the Night Elves evolved, what Quel'Thalas was, what sort of elves lived there, and so on. But these two stories intertwine there, because Arthas brought the Scourge in and invaded Quel'Thalas and destroyed the Sunwell. So, in order to resurrect Kel'Thuzad, Arthas, he needed the magic of the Sunwell, which was a sacred place for the High Elves in Quel'Thalas. So he led an invasion into Quel'Thalas. He slaughtered every High Elf he could find. They desecrated Silvermoon, their city, and they corrupted the sacred Sunwell. This nearly destroyed the entire High Elven race. After this event, the High Elves changed name to the Blood Elves because of the massacre that took place. Number 6, and it's related to this, the torturing and raising Sylvanas Windrunner as a Banshee. And if you need to hear more about that, I made an entire story about Sylvanas Windrunner when I made a review of this statue. You're very welcome to see the entire video of her story and her conflict with Arthas, which actually is quite long. They fight for a long period of time. Atrocity number 7, the corruption of Sindragosa. Let me bring Sindragosa. And here we have the dragon itself, or herself, Sindragosa, the brood mother, the frostworm of the Lich King. And by the way, if you're wondering where I have these 3D models, I printed them, and there's a guy, I've never talked to him and I have no collaboration with him, but I think he's really cool. His name is Luftmensch Studio. He has a Patreon page and also a Facebook page. I followed and liked his page there to support him on Facebook, and I bought I think 4 or 5 of his statues. If you see this, thank you for the work that you're putting in, Luftmensch. Hope I pronounced this right, but these are awesome. I bought the 3D models and I hope it's okay that I bring them in this video because I think your work is amazing. Let me know, guys, by the way, if you want a review of this statue, a 3D printed statue. But in any case, this is Sindragosa. Sindragosa was a majestic blue dragon and the consort of Malygos, who was the blue dragon aspect, the leader of the Blue Dragon flight, and the guardian of magic in the Warcraft universe. There were 5 dragon aspects in total. Malygos was one of them, and the one who was guarding magic. For example, Deathwing Neltharion was the dragon aspect of the Earth Warder, whereas Malygos was the one guarding magic. This is his wife. Arthas, he killed Sindragosa and raised her as a Frostworm, and she served him as a chilling agent of death. She was breathing undeath into the Scourge with a dragon breath. You can actually see Sindragosa in the login screen for the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. There's a blue beautiful dragon. That's the dragon. It's Sindragosa. Here she is. Let me remove her so you can see me again. You can actually see me, so that's fine. I'll go one more and then we can change it. Atrocity number 8. The Scourge War in Northrend and the attempt to conquer entire Azeroth. You see, from Icecrown Citadel, his fortress, Arthas, he launched the Scourge invasion, aiming to turn all life on Azeroth into deathless servitude. Again, the point of the Lich King was that he would weaken the armies of Azeroth so that Sargeras could come in and easily destroy the planet. Whether he managed to do that or not, you know by now, not really. Let me move Sindragosa again. Thank you for your presence, Sindragosa. Next to last, atrocity number 9, the Knights of the Ebon Blade. So, Death Knights, created from Arthas's dark vision to manipulate death energies and support his dark crusade. The good part of this is we managed to turn the Knights of the Ebon Blade to our side thanks to Tirion Fordring and thanks to the Ashbringer up there on the wall. We managed to defend Light's Hope Chapel in the Eastern Plaguelands against the Lich King, and also we get the Death Knights on our side, which is cool because in Wrath of the Lich King the Death Knights were absolutely the most powerful class that probably World of Warcraft has ever seen throughout the entire expansions on all specs. Blood, Unholy and Frost, you would just not be able to stand against them. I think especially the Blood Death Knights, they are still known to this day as basically indestructible, and they were also in the arena all the time. I played it for a tiny bit. It was fun. It was fun. Number 10. Psychological torture of his enemies. You see, Arthas did not just kill. He toyed with minds and souls. He taunted Sylvanas, he broke Darien Mograine, he corrupted Thessarian and Dranosh Sourfang, the son of the popular and loved Varrock Sourfang. Arthas also played long games with Tirion Fordring and Bolvar Fordragon, breaking spirits before shattering bodies. So the torture, for example, of Bolvar Fordragon can be experienced at the Icecrown Citadel raid, where he is chained at the top of the Frozen Throne, and also when you enter the raid you can hear the torture and the voice of Bolvar Fordragon trying to fight the Lich King. In year 33, the champions of Azeroth, led by Tirion Fordring, defeat the Lich King at the top of the Icecrown Citadel. The Ashbringer shatters Frostmourne, releasing the multitude of souls trapped inside the blade. At the moment of his death, the haze lifts and Arthas Menethil seems to regain his true self as his father's spirit appears. This dialogue then happens. Arthas begins.
Father, is it over? At long last. No king rules forever, my son. I see only darkness before me.
Arthas's hand falls lifeless to the ground, and King Tyrannus closes Arthas's eyes with compassion. Since there always must be a Lich King, according to the spirit of King Tyrannus Menethil, and the control over the Scourge must be maintained, the Burning Man, Bolvar Fordragon, offers to take this last act of sacrifice. I will bring a prop so you understand this better. This is the Helm of the Lich King. This is also 3D printed, and it's a version which you can use and is what complements the Frostmourne. I will actually go into a few details, although it's not here, but let me finish this small story. Bolvar Fordragon offers to take this last act of sacrifice of control over the Scourge. He asks Tirion to place the Helm of Domination on his head and tell everyone that the Lich King is dead and that Bolvar Fordragon died with him. The motivation of Bolvar Fordragon was that if people knew about the fact that the Lich King always has to exist, then there would be panic. And that would not be something that the people could live in peace with. So that's why he asks that everyone should forget Tirion Fordring and that he has now become the jailer of the dead, or the Scourge. So The story with the Frostmourne and with the Helm is a bit complicated nowadays, because some sources mention that the Helm is the powerful one, whereas from other sources it's the Frostmourne that is the more powerful one, but they work together as one. And back in Wrath of the Lich King we didn't know how they were created. We know now after Shadowlands that these two domination items, they were created at the order of the Jailer. They were created by the Rune Forger as artifacts of domination, which would grant the Jailer power over the person who wielded or carried them or equipped them. And apparently when Sylvanas Windrunner later in the expansion in Shadowlands, she shattered the Helm of domination, she broke the veil between the two worlds. This would be the story of why this is so very important. And also, when Arthas initially started becoming a Death Knight, he first found the Frostmourne, but the Helm of Domination, together with the rest of the armor, was encased in ice at the top of the Icecrown Citadel, and that's where Ner'zhul was imprisoned. And only when Arthas he got to the top of the Icecrown Citadel and took the Helm of Domination, placed it on his head, that's where he fused with Ner'zhul the Lich King and became the new Lich King. So if you want, it is the Helm that is the more powerful of the two items, giving it the complete transformative effect after equipping it. We're gonna get back to the story later on, where you will find out that there are more domination items that have been created. Stay tuned, we're getting there. The next chapter is called Chapter 5, Nothingness. Later in Shadowlands, we learn the fate of the soul of Arthas. You see, the Jailer was, according to Activision Blizzard, in control of this entire adventure, as I just explained. When Arthas picked up Frostmourne, his soul was fragmented, when he picked up the sword. One of the fragments remained in Frostmourne even after it was shattered. So when we kill him at the top of Icecrown Citadel, when Tirion Fordring smashes Frostmourne with the Ashbringer, the Frostmourne is shattered into many pieces, souls gush out of it, but a small piece of Arthas stays in the fractured sword on the ground. Zovaal, the Jailer, in his massiveness, boldness, shreddedness, he was always looking for weapons to assist in his plan for world domination. So he reached out to the Icecrown Citadel, to the shattered Frostmourne, and he found the splintered shard of Arthas, a piece of his soul that was still bound to the ruined blade. Zovaal then used the last fragments of Arthas' soul to forge a new weapon, a new rune blade echoing Frostmourne. The name was the Kingsmourne, and it resembled Charlemagne a lot, but just with a soul shard of Arthas in it, making it a blade of domination. The Kingsmourne was a rune blade used to enslave a new bearer, the High King Anduin Wrynn. So for Arthas, it just keeps going downhill. Now his soul fragments are used after his defeat to enslave yet another king. Thankfully, it's a short-lived domination. Anduin Lyn, apparently we just changed his name. After we defeat the Jailer and restore balance to the Shadowlands, Sylvanas, Uther and Jaina, they confront the faint remnant of Arthas' soul in the Shadowlands. The soul is silent. No words. It's just a floating wisp. the following dialogue happens. Arthas?
Is this all that remains of him?
The last flicker of his scarred spirit, consumed at the forges of the jailer.
And this is where Sylvanas comes into play.
No crown, no throne, not even a soul left for judgment. I hated you, hunted you, and with each selfish act, became you. This is my burden to bear, but your legacy is at an end. Begone then, Arthas Menethil. May the last whisper of your name fade and be forgotten.
The last flicker fades, nothing is left. And this was the story of Arthas Menethil. An incredibly powerful story, a crazy journey that he goes through. He is one of the most loved characters in World of Warcraft, but I will not categorize him as #1 most loved. You will understand why in some of my next videos. But he is hands down the most well-known character in Warcraft's story. I have a cliffhanger for you though. There are some sources that claim that when the jailer forged the Kingsmourne from the lingering essence, this soul fragment that was left in the shattered remains of Frostmourne, he took only the things that were useful, the part he could weaponize. Residue of domination, the tactical will, the connection to the power of the Frostmourne. The rest of the original fragment, holding the soft, quiet side, the memories and the guilt, was left behind. So it was not destroyed when Anduin Wrynn shattered Kingsmourne and the soul fragment of Arthas fainted away. So that good part of Arthas could still be left in the shattered remains of the Frostmourne at the Ice-Crowned Citadel. Does this mean that Arthas will come back one day? We don't know yet, but we will figure out. Thanks for watching. Bye.